The March sun lazily filtered through the windows of the small pharmacy in downtown São Paulo, creating a play of light and shadow on the white tile floor. Lúcia nervously adjusted her white lab coat, as she did every morning since she began working there 2 years ago. At 23, she bore the responsibility of helping her family, especially after her father fell ill. The salary of a pharmacy clerk wasn't much, but combined with her father's small pension, they managed to maintain the household with dignity. Her mornings always followed the same ritual: arriving early, organizing the shelves, and attending to regular customers with a gentle smile. The morning was proceeding normally when the door's bell chimed softly. The young man who entered looked exhausted, with deep dark circles under his brown eyes and slightly disheveled hair. His navy blue suit, though of good quality, showed signs of a sleepless night. Lucas, at 25, had just completed his first month as an engineer at a large company. The project he was coordinating had tight deadlines, forcing him to spend the night in the office, and now his head throbbed relentlessly. The pharmacy's system chose that moment to malfunction, something that had never happened before. The keys on the computer seemed to resist Lucia's delicate fingers, and she felt increasingly nervous with the presence of the young customer. The subtle scent of his cologne filled the air, mingling with the characteristic smell of medications. Lucas waited patiently, flipping through an old health magazine while discreetly observing the graceful movements of the pharmacist. In Lucia's mind, memories of her childhood in a small town began to surface. She recalled afternoons spent on the porch with her grandmother, listening to stories of unexpected loves and destined encounters. The old lady always said that true love appears at the most improbable moments, like a butterfly landing gently without warning. Now something in the air felt different, as if the universe conspired to create that unique moment. Lucas also got lost in his thoughts. His mother's words echoed in his mind about how love appears when you least expect it. His heart, though tired from the sleepless nights spent finishing reports, beat a little faster each time his eyes met hers. The headache that had brought him there seemed to fade with every passing minute in that almost magical atmosphere. Time appeared to drag on as the technician tried to resolve the issue over the phone. The minutes turned into almost an hour, filled with shy glances and contained smiles. The silence between them held more meaning than 1,000 words could express. Other customers came and went, but for them, the world seemed to shrink to that small space between the counter and the waiting area. When Lucia finally managed to complete the sale of the pain reliever, she felt her hands tremble slightly as she handed over the change. Lucas carefully tucked the receipt into his suit pocket, as if that small piece of paper were much more than a simple sales slip. The sun was now higher in the sky, and its rays illuminated the dust dancing in the air, creating an almost cinematic atmosphere. Neither could imagine that this seemingly casual meeting would be the first chapter of a story that would span decades, continents, and hearts. Lucia's routine at the pharmacy subtly transformed after her first encounter with Lucas. Every time the doorbell announced the arrival of a customer, her heart raced. The anticipation of seeing him again made her mornings brighter, as if the sun outside were shining more radiantly. As the weeks passed, Lucas became a frequent visitor. He arrived with small purchases, always seeking excuses to spend more time at the counter, where Lucia attended to him with a smile that lit up her eyes. Days went by, and the connection between them deepened. Simple conversations about medications and health quickly evolved into exchanges of personal stories. Lucia spoke about her hopes of opening her own shop, while Lucas shared his ambitions to excel in engineering. The chemistry between them was palpable, a magnetism that drew them together as if they were destined to meet. On one of those sunny days, while organizing the shelves, Lucia couldn't help but have a flashback to her youth. recalling the promises made in a distant summer when she dreamed of being more than just a pharmacy clerk. She remembered the vacations spent at her grandmother's house, where afternoons were filled with laughter and plans for the future. Lucas's passionate gaze awakened that same dormant hope within her. He made her believe that anything was possible, that her dreams could come true. Lucas, for his part, also reminisced about simpler times. He remembered the pressure of college, the sleepless nights, and the friends who had become like brothers. However, nothing compared to the joy he felt in Lucia's presence. She brought a new light into his life, dissipating the darkness that surrounded him after long, exhausting nights at work. The connection they were building felt magical, and each conversation became a new chapter in an unexpected romance. As the months went by, their meetings became more frequent, not only at the pharmacy but also outside of it. They began meeting after work in parks and cafes, where the world around them disappeared, and it was just the two of them. Young and intense love was blossoming, and Lucia allowed herself to dream once more. The idea of a future together began to take shape in her mind. On an autumn afternoon, while walking through a park, their conversation took a deeper turn. They talked about what they desired from life and what they expected from each other. It was a moment of vulnerability that brought them even closer. Lucia revealed her fears about the future, while Lucas, full of courage, promised to be by her side. He wanted to build a home, a life, and Lucia knew she wanted to share that with him. But life, as always, had other plans. While they floated in the bubble of happiness they had created, Lucas received a call from his company. The smile on his face quickly faded as he heard the words on the other end of the line. He looked at Lucia, who was so full of hope, and felt a weight in his heart. What was to come next would change everything, and he didn't know how to tell her. The romance between Lucia and Lucas unfolded rapidly. In just 3 months, every moment they shared was filled with significance. With each meeting, their connection grew stronger. Conversations that began with medications evolved into long walks under the moonlight, with São Paulo becoming the backdrop for a youthful and ardent love. Lucia daydreamed about a life alongside Lucas, imagining what it would be like to wake up every day with him by her side. Weekends were filled with small adventures. They explored new cafes, watched movies, and walked through the city hand in hand. The feeling of being with him was electrifying, as if each touch ignited a spark of happiness. Lucas made Lucia laugh in ways she never thought possible. It was a simple love, yet so profound that it felt timeless. With every moment, the certainty that they were meant to be together grew within them, as if life was finally aligning. Lucia couldn't contain her excitement when thinking about the future. One day, while organizing products at the pharmacy, her mind wandered to what could be a wedding. The thought of marrying Lucas, of having a ceremony with friends and family, warmed her heart. She remembered the conversation they had about dreams. "One day, I want to open my own business," she had said, and Lucas had encouraged her. Now she wondered if he also dreamed of a future with her, and that thought filled her with hope. Lucas, for his part, spent sleepless nights contemplating how he could surprise Lucia. He was convinced he had found the right person, someone who would make his heart race with every glance. The bond between them was undeniable, and he dreamed of proposing to Lucia. He pictured a perfect moment, a candlelit dinner, flowers, and a sparkling ring. He wanted to give Lucia the security of a lasting love. His plans were buzzing in his mind, but he knew he had to be careful. The right moment needed to be perfect. One day, while walking through the park, Lucia received a message from her mother. "We need to talk about your life." Her heart raced. She knew her mother was worried about her future, and although it was a conversation she wished to avoid, the need to resolve it weighed heavily on her shoulders. She hesitated to share this with Lucas, fearing it might create a barrier between them. But their relationship was maturing, and honesty was crucial. When Lucas asked her what was bothering her, Lucia hesitated, but the sincerity that had always existed between them compelled her to open up. With tears in her eyes, she spoke about the pressure she felt from her family to have a stable life and how it made her feel insecure. Lucas listened intently, holding her hand and assuring her that there was no pressure from him. "What matters is that we are together," he said, and those words comforted her deeply. However, a shadow of a new challenge was approaching. Lucas received an unexpected phone call from his company, summoning him to an emergency meeting. The tension in the air was palpable, and the light-hearted atmosphere surrounding their relationship began to darken. As reality closed in, Lucia felt a tightening in her chest. The certainty that everything was about to change loomed over them, and the doubt about what lay ahead left their hearts restless. Those moments of happiness might soon be challenged by circumstances neither of them could have imagined. The light and promise that surrounded Lucia and Lucas were abruptly replaced by tension. Lucas arrived at the meeting with the certainty that something was wrong. His colleagues appeared visibly nervous, and the pressure in the air was palpable. He had no idea that within hours his life would change forever. The company was embroiled in a financial scandal, and despite all his efforts to do his job correctly, he found himself caught in an investigation involving documents he hadn't fully understood. The call he received the day before weighed heavily on his mind. What could have been a simple meeting turned into a nightmare. Lucas remembered Lucia's hopeful gaze, and how he dreamed of building a future with her. Now he felt like a man about to lose everything. The gravity of the situation manifested in every word he heard. Authorities were involved, and to avoid a greater disaster, he was advised to leave the country immediately. When Lucas returned home that night, the weight of reality crashed down on his shoulders. The image of Lucia, with her smile brightening his mornings, wouldn't leave his mind. He couldn't imagine life without her, but the situation demanded a quick decision. He sat at the table, pen in hand, while the words forming in his mind became a letter for Lucia. What could he say to explain his absence? "I have to go, but I can't say goodbye properly," he thought, the pain in his chest intensifying. Lucia waited for Lucas that night, excited and full of plans for the future. However, when she opened the door, she found the letter on the table. His hurried handwriting and the message felt surreal. He needed to leave, and the reason was a shadow she couldn't comprehend. Her world crumbled in that instant. What was once a budding love transformed into a feeling of helplessness. The warmth of hope gave way to the coldness of uncertainty, and tears streamed down her face as she read the words that refused to make sense. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months, and life went on. Lucas left Brazil and settled in Spain, trying to rebuild his life. Time passed, but Lucia's absence followed him like a shadow. He married, had children, and life seemed to normalize, but the echo of a love not lived accompanied him in every laugh of his children and every moment of happiness. Lucia also found a new path. The pain of separation transformed into strength. Working hard, she managed to open her own pharmacy and over time, built a new life in São Paulo. She married and had a family, but in each success, there was a part of her that wondered what her life would have been like had Lucas still been by her side. The love she felt never completely abandoned her. It was a warm, yet painful memory. And so life moved on, marked by longing and memories of a young and intense love. Neither of them dared to make contact, as the blow of destiny had imposed a separation that seemed irrevocable. The circumstances that had pulled them apart became part of their stories, and life continued to spin around new realities. Even if, in their innermost selves, the flame of love remained lit, waiting for a moment to resurface. The years flew by, and Lucia's life in São Paulo became a testament to resilience. Her pharmacy thrived and over time, evolved into a respected business in the community. Success brought not only professional satisfaction but also a sense of personal achievement. Now a woman in her 30s, Lucia married a kind man who supported her dreams, and together they started a family. Yet in moments of solitude, she couldn't help but reflect on what could have been, especially when looking at the photos from her wedding, filled with joy, yet marked by an absence. Lucas, for his part, also found his own way to move forward. In his new life in Spain, he adapted to the new environment, formed bonds with friends, and dedicated himself to his engineering career. His wife, Anna, was a lovely woman, but even in his happiest moments, Lucas couldn't help but be haunted by memories of Lucia. At family gatherings and celebrations, when everyone seemed joyful, a part of him still dreamt of what could have been. He often found himself lost in thoughts of their days together, the scent of her cologne, and the sound of her laughter, reminiscing about a past he couldn't reclaim. Throughout those years they both lived fully, yet never forgot one another. On special days when longing became overwhelming, Lucia allowed herself to remember the moments they dreamed together. Those days of youthful love became stories whispered softly, a chapter that, although closed, was never forgotten. She looked at her children and thought about how wonderful it would have been to introduce them to Lucas, how he would have made an excellent father. These thoughts brought a mix of joy and melancholy. Lucas, on the other hand, watched his children playing in the yard, feeling a void when thinking about Lucia. He often wondered if she still thought of him, if her memories were as vivid for her as they were for him. Sometimes he found himself daydreaming about how life would have been with Lucia by his side, how it would have been to watch their children grow up together as siblings. But reality always returned, forcing him to set those thoughts aside, focusing instead on his current family. Despite the time and distance, the universe seemed to have a peculiar way of intertwining the paths of those meant to be together. In 2023, Lucia, now a widow at 68, was about to board a flight to Madrid, where her granddaughter was studying. Destiny was calling her, and even with the heavy memories of a love never forgotten, there was a slight hope in her heart that new experiences awaited her. Lucas, at 70, was also on the same flight, returning home after visiting his son in Brazil. He could barely contain his anxiety. An odd feeling washed over him. When he entered the airplane, he scanned the rows, unaware that fate was preparing him for a reunion that would change their lives once again. The connection between them, so strong and significant, seemed to transcend time and space. The plane took off, and with it, the two strangers who once shared a deep love were about to meet again. What could have been just a flight would turn into a turning point in their lives. The past and present would intertwine in a moment that promised to reignite forgotten feelings and create new memories, all within the confined space where Lucia and Lucas's lives were about to collide once more. Lucia's flight to Madrid was filled with passengers, but for her, the world seemed to shrink around her. Sitting by the window, she watched the clouds swiftly passing by, feeling a mix of emotion and nostalgia. The thought of her granddaughter studying in a new city filled her heart with pride. Yet, at the same time, echoes of past memories that she couldn't ignore haunted her. The eyes of Lucas, the laughter, and the promise of a future that never came to fruition danced in her mind, even after all these years. Life had taken her down different paths, but the love she once felt still burned in her heart. On the same flight, Lucas observed the cabin, feeling restless. The return trip home was a routine, but something was different this time. He could hardly contain his anxiety. There was something in the air that made him feel significant changes were coming. As he looked out the window, he saw the ground below receding, and he couldn't help but think of the life he had left behind. While reminiscing about Lucia, the joy he once felt when they were together remained vibrant, like a flame refusing to extinguish. When the plane reached cruising altitude, a seating mix-up led Lucas and Lucia to find each other. As he walked down the aisle searching for his seat, the woman gazing out the window made his heart stop. Lucia, now older but still radiant, was sitting just one seat away. The first exchange of glances was electric, an instant recognition that sent shockwaves through both. Memories flooded back. Laughter, promises, and a love that had never been forgotten. The two studied each other in silence, each struggling to believe what they were seeing. Time had left its marks, but Lucia's eyes still sparkled like they did on the day they met. For Lucas, the moment felt surreal. The weight of the past and the pain of separation lightened immediately. He sat down next to her, still incredulous, and for a moment, the world around them vanished. The conversation began hesitantly, as if they were testing the waters of an ocean that had expanded between them over the years. With each exchanged word, the tension began to dissolve. Talking about their lives, their children, and their experiences was a balm for old wounds. Smiles appeared easily, and the bond they had shared in their youth seemed to float back into the air. The sense of belonging, even after decades, was palpable. As the flight continued, they allowed themselves to recall the days of old, the promises they had made, and the dreams they once had. The realization that they had both moved on, but that life had brought them back together, evoked a wave of emotion that neither was prepared to handle. The atmosphere of the plane, a blend of expectation and nostalgia, seemed to envelop them in a cocoon of comfort. The journey that began as a simple trip transformed into a voyage of rediscovery, where old memories gained new life. And there, sitting side by side, Lucia and Lucas wondered what destiny still had in store for them, aware that this reunion could be the first step toward a new story, a new chance that life was offering them. The flight progressed, and the conversation between Lucia and Lucas flowed like a river, taking them back to times that seemed distant yet now felt so close. Initially, the exchange of hesitant glances and smiles transformed into laughter and shared stories. They spoke about their lives, the challenges they had faced, and the joys and sorrows that shaped them. The past, once an open wound, now seemed like a richly woven fabric of experiences. Each memory brought a wave of emotions that enveloped them, and time appeared to fade around them. Lucia shared with Lucas about her career, how she had managed to open her pharmacy and build a life she had always desired. Pride colored her voice, but there was also a touch of melancholy. She spoke about the loss of her husband, a shadow that still lingered, but which had not prevented her from moving on. For her, it was important to share that part of her life. As he listened, Lucas felt his heart tighten. Life had been generous to him, but he knew it had also imposed its own struggles on Lucia. While Lucia spoke, Lucas recalled the promise he had made to himself to always protect those he loved. Hearing her stories made it clear that she was a strong and resilient woman. He admired her even more for that. When it was his turn to speak, Lucas shared the ups and downs of his life in Spain, the hard work, the challenges of fatherhood, and the pain of losing his wife. The way he described his journey brought a spark of understanding to Lucia's eyes. They were united not just by the love of the past, but also by the scars of the present. Time flew by, and they began to realize that the hours of conversation were a gift that life had given them. The connection between them was as alive as it had ever been, as if it had never been broken. It was during a pause in the conversation that the recognition finally occurred. Lucas looked into Lucia's eyes and saw not only the woman he had loved, but also the companion he had wished to have by his side during every meaningful moment in life. Silence enveloped them, rich with significance as they processed the depth of their emotions. The airplane's atmosphere felt warm, but the chill of reality still lingered. They both knew they were about to land, and the thought that the journey was coming to an end brought a mix of happiness and apprehension. There was a growing desire to explore this rekindled connection, but also concern about what the future held. Lucia looked out the window, watching the clouds dissipate in solid ground approach, feeling that this was a new opportunity. As the plane touched down, a sense of uncertainty hung in the air. They both knew their paths had crossed unexpectedly, and the possibility of a future together lay before them, but there were also challenges in their current lives to consider. Lucas, feeling the adrenaline of the reunion, knew he needed to do something significant. The desire to not just reconnect, but to create new memories together burned within him. As they disembarked, both hesitated, as if the universe was testing them. Lucia looked at Lucas, and he gazed back at her with an expression that said everything. It was time to decide whether to let life take its natural course, or to give a chance to the love that still existed between them. The steps they would take next would be crucial, and in that moment the options seemed infinite. What did destiny hold for them? The future was open, waiting for them to choose the direction to follow. After disembarking in Madrid, Lucia and Lucas felt the intensity of the moment. The airport was bustling with anxious travelers, but for them the outside world seemed to fade away. The connection they had rediscovered throughout the flight now urged them to explore what this new phase of their lives could offer. The blend of anxiety and anticipation wrapped around them like a cloak as they looked at each other, both aware that something special was about to happen. The following days were filled with meetings. Lucas decided it was time to explain to Lucia everything that had happened after he left. With every conversation, he felt the guilt that had followed him for years starting to dissipate. They met in a small cafe in Madrid, a cozy place that exuded nostalgia, where memories of the past mingled with new realities. He knew he needed to be honest about his abrupt departure and the pain it had caused. As they savored their coffee, Lucas began to share his story. He explained how the company became embroiled in a financial scandal and how, to protect himself and his family, he was advised to leave Brazil. Each word was heavy with emotion, and he watched Lucia's expression change from confusion to understanding. "I never wanted to leave you," he said, his voice trembling. "The situation was complicated, and I found myself trapped in something I didn't fully understand." Lucia listened intently, her emotions swinging between the pain of the past and empathy for the man before her. The truth being revealed helped her understand the silence that had followed his departure. The memories of her hopes and dreams ran deep, and she found herself understanding that, like her, Lucas had his own struggles. Life hadn't been easy for either of them, but the conversation was helping heal wounds that had remained open for years. As the discussion unfolded, the environment around them became increasingly insignificant. It was as if the cafe had disappeared, leaving just the two of them, immersed in their memories and exchanged words. Lucia shared her own experiences, speaking about the pain of loss and how, despite moving forward, a part of her always wondered about Lucas. They both realized that even though they had lived separate lives, their stories were intertwined in ways they could never have imagined. The challenges they faced shaped who they were now, and the love that once bloomed between them became a beacon of hope. It was an opportunity not only to settle the past, but also to build a future together if they so desired. At the end of the meeting, a new connection was established. They both felt that, despite years of separation, the love they had shared had not faded. The flame that once united them was now reignited, and the prospect of a new chapter seemed irresistible. Thus, with unspoken promises hanging in the air, they bid each other farewell, each carrying the hope that what lay ahead would be as beautiful as what they had lost. The days following Lucia and Lucas's reunion in Madrid were filled with new energy. The vibrant city around them seemed to reflect the rebirth of their own lives. They explored tourist spots, walked through historic streets, and with each shared laugh, the connection they had rediscovered grew stronger. It felt as if they had traveled back in time, but now they were older, more aware of what love truly meant. Lucas began traveling to Brazil frequently whenever possible to see Lucia. The conversations were deep, filled with laughter and reflections on what it meant to have a second chance. During these encounters, they spoke about their children, their lives, and the importance of a love that had withstood the test of time. Lucia talked about her pharmacy, her achievements and challenges, while Lucas shared the joys and difficulties of fatherhood and maintaining his career. At the same time, the weight of the past still lingered. Lucia wondered if it was right to allow Lucas back into her life, considering everything they had been through. She wanted to believe that what they were building was real and lasting. Lucas, for his part, also struggled with the fear that his presence could destabilize Lucia's life, which had moved on without him. Yet, both were determined not to let those insecurities drive them apart. During one of those encounters, while walking through a beautiful park in São Paulo, Lucas mustered the courage to ask Lucia about her expectations for the future. "Do you believe we can really have a new beginning?" he inquired, his heart racing. Lucia hesitated, emotions washing over her. She knew her feelings for him were strong, but she also feared fully opening herself up again. "I think it's possible," she replied, "but we need to make sure we're ready for it." Their conversations became increasingly honest. They shared their fears and insecurities, and each revelation only brought them closer. Lucia remembered the night she dreamt of true love, and looking at Lucas made her feel that dream could come true. The idea of falling in love with him again excited her but also made her anxious. He wanted to ensure that if they were to give themselves to each other again, there would be no regrets. Time passed, and their relationship evolved into something they both cherished. With each visit, they grew closer, and the love that had once blossomed in their youth now flourished with new depth. The maturity they had gained over the years brought a fresh perspective on what it meant to love and be loved. They felt more complete with each other than ever. And so, on a sunny afternoon, while walking along the shore of a lake, Lucas looked at Lucia and said, "I think I'm finally ready to do something important." Lucia felt a chill in her stomach as anticipation hung in the air. Lucas then knelt down, pulling a small ring from his pocket. "Lucia, will you give me the chance to build a future by your side again?" The moment was charged with emotion, and the past faded away, leaving only space for a renewed love waiting to blossom. Lucia and Lucas's story teaches us that, although life can take us down unexpected paths, true love has a unique way of enduring through time. The experiences and challenges we face shape who we are, but they should never prevent us from believing in the possibility of new beginnings. Their reunion is not just a return to the past. It's a celebration of resilience and the ability to start over, showing that each love, even after pain and separation, can be rekindled stronger and deeper. If you were touched by Lucia and Lucas's journey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Activate the notification bell to receive updates on new stories that will touch your heart. And if you know someone who also needs to hear about the strength of love and forgiveness, share this video. Let's spread these messages of hope together.